Right, you're watching OTB AM and as part of Sky Sports 2021 GAA Season Launch announcing their 2021 championship fixtures. It includes 18 live matches, 12 of them exclusive to Sky. Delighted to be joined by the Sky Sports panellists, former Donegal manager, of course, Jim McGuiness. How are you, Jim?
Adrian, how you doing?
Very impressive background there. We're all getting back to our restaurants very shortly, but you're beating us all to it.
It's definitely not my picking, to be honest with you. Now, I've got a bit of a shock myself when I logged on there, but anyway.
I think it's important to point out to people that is just it's a background rather than you being sat in a restaurant. I had planned to ask you where you were at in the world and how life was and how things are going. So maybe that's the best jumping off point.
No, definitely, yeah. I've had a lovely lunch there, and I'm looking forward to dessert.
Nice Italian. Where are you? How are you keeping?
I'm in Donegal. I'm looking out here at the hills of Donegal here, out the back window of the house here, and the sun is shining.
Beautiful. It's I don't know if it's been lost on you or not, but you've kept us in chat over the last few months. There's always a Jim McGuiness conversation in any given week about where you're at, where you're up to, who you might be joining, who you're not joining. What are you up to on a day today?
Kaiser Sose. At the moment, I'm working actually with the Derry U19s. Friend of mine, Jared Boyle, is the coach there, and Sean Holmes. And so we had a couple of chats in the off season, and I'm in working with them now. We're in the middle of pre-season, coming to the end of pre-season, thankfully. So I've really enjoyed that. It's been great fun, good banter with the coaches, and getting a good bit of work done with the players as well. And a good wee group as well, some talented players in there, and looking forward to the start of the season with that. And then just in terms of myself, like waiting for that right moment or opportunity. If something comes up, then that I can jump from that and make a decision. But it's great to be back on the pitch, working with players again, and just running sessions and developing things. That's been really, really enjoyable because of lockdown and stuff. You miss it. You really do miss it.
And is what are you doing with the 19s?
I just coaching them, just working with the other two coaches, and we're all just coaching them, and they're in the National League, under 19 National League competition, the FAI competition, and so we're just getting ready for blast off in a couple of months' time.
We'll ask you the other question in a little bit, but to stay with the GAA for the minute, where is Jim McGuiness at in 2021 in terms of your GAA ambitions?
My wife's going to bring me in a cup of coffee here. We've only been speaking football since 9 o'clock this morning with this media day. So you'll excuse me if a cup of coffee arrives on
absolutely
my desk.
Get stuck in.
But in terms of the Gaelic, you're asking me?
Yeah. Where are you at? What are you thinking? Have you? I'm sure that you're constantly thinking about what you're going to do with what's the next step, what's the next phase, where you're going to get involved. You've spoken before about your ambitions around the GAA scene. What are you thinking, or what has it changed at all in the last 12, 24 months?
No, I'm not thinking of Gaelic at all at the moment, other than sort of covering it, and I really, really enjoy that. And I suppose that keeps you close to the action anyway. You're watching the games, you're analysing the games, you're reviewing the games, and the work with the times as well allows you to do that. So you're always close to the action in terms of trends and in terms of teams and who's pushing and who's not pushing and things like that. But other than that, I'm just focused on the other thing. I'm just enjoying it. We're doing 4 nights a week at the minute, with pre-season, and most of the other nights you're on the phone anyway and you're talking about it. So it's if life has taught me anything, is you can't have your focus on two things, and so if you're doing something that you're focused on that and you're committed to that and trying to move forward on that front, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Jim, I'm just curious now, when you're working with an under 19 setup, we're talking 10 years on now since that great Donegal team in 2011, 2012. Young fellas nowadays have different distractions. They've got social media, they've got a huge amount of things on their minds as well, and leaving cert issues, as opposed to when you're dealing with the senior boys. So how do you compare, walking into a dressing room with young lads now, and maybe the difference in maybe walking into a dressing room 10 years ago with a group of senior players?
Well, you see, I suppose I was fortunate that I had the precursor with the under 21s, before I went into the senior job, and the under 21s with Donegal. This is very, very similar situation. They're, if I ever, do a corporate talk or whatever, I always put up a picture and a PowerPoint of a red setter, and ask the audience why it's up there in a footballing context, and in the context of under 21s, and you'll always get, because it's the symbol on the bus Aaron, that you're going on a journey and this type of thing, but it's never that. It's always because I don't know if you've ever had a red setter or not, but they've got an endless amount of energy, not a lot of sense, bouncing about the place, just absolute fun. And that was the under 21s. That's what we had. They're just great fun, great to be around, and great atmosphere, and not taking themselves too serious. At the same time, really hungry for information. Their bodies are still developing, so the strength side of things, nutrition side of things, all those things are still really, really important to them. And then obviously the tactical sides of things, that they haven't seen it all and done it all like a senior pro or a senior player, would have. So they're like sponges. They're very much like sponges. And so that's been very, very refreshing over the last couple of months, working with the young lads again, and sort of that aspect of it, And then there's parts of the senior game, that you miss as well, the more serious stuff and the serious analysis, and, the training sessions, the level, the very, very high intensity levels and technical levels that senior players bring and expect. But it's been great fun, we're training the night again, and looking forward to it.
I was saying on the show a few weeks ago that my old neighbour here from Kerry was telling me that the reason that they beat Galway by so much was that you were in working the Galway lads you were flogging them and the too many miles in the legs. Are you working with any other counties? Are you dipping in and out, or is it just sole focus on Derry?
Yeah, no, just the focus there with the young lads at the moment. Yeah, no, I'm not working with anybody, or I don't have any plans to work with anybody at the moment. No, just seeing how that goes, and looking to develop myself as a person and as a coach, and if the right opportunity comes, then.
What's the rental market like in Dundalk?
The what, sorry?
The rental market.
I have no idea. I don't think I've ever been in Dundalk, to be honest with you. In my life, I've probably drove past it a million times, but no.
But then all sorts of sightings around petrol stations and.
Oh, that's possible. That's probably possible on your way to Dublin for bits and pieces,
What is there any truth in it?
No, listen, there was conversations and there was communications and stuff, and we'll see where that goes moving forward. As I said, about 15 different times over the course of today, all those things are private. And so if something does develop and something moves forward on that front or any other front, I think it's important that confidentiality is important. And I'm a private person anyway. And whenever you've got something to say, you've got something to say. I don't believe in sort of links and commenting on links and speculations and all that type of thing. I think they're a nonsense, really, because to get into any club, you've got to be a fit for the club. The club has got to be a fit for you. There has to be a vision, in terms of the club and what they want to do, what's success, what's not success, what do you want to achieve. What do you bring to the table? Where does all those things match? So there's probably 20 or 30 or 40 places where the thing can fall down, in my opinion. And getting somewhere where you think that you'll feel comfortable and you think that'll work both ways is the most important thing. And so that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, and that's fair enough, and totally understood the private nature of those things. Can we continue the conversation then away almost from Dundalk, if that's all right? Because it is a conversation that comes up in relation to your crossover over the last while. I think people sort of have the impression that you're Johnny come lately into it, obviously, and you've been at it for the best part of 10 years or more. Obviously, at this point, we'd that your credentials as a crossover. We had Shane Kern on a couple of weeks back, and he's had a foot in both as a player, League of Ireland and GAA, and he said it's nearly impossible to be a manager in both or to swap. Where do you see yourself at in terms of that conversation, Jim, around your football credentials? How much of a football man in terms of soccer that you are, and like as I said, there are certainly a lot of people that have voiced their opinion about you who are in the world of soccer and about your credentials as a football man. How do you view all that?
Well, I don't, to be honest with you. Your biggest critic is yourself, and there's no doubt. Like, and I've always said this from the get-go. You're starting off at the lowest rung of the ladder, and you're looking to rise to the highest rung of the ladder. That's ultimately what you're trying to do. For football people, like soccer people, everything that would be sort of instinctive to them and that they would take for granted, I had to learn, and I had to develop, and I had to try and create an understanding around that, and that's what I set about doing. And then on top of that, then you've got to be studying the game. You've got to study, all the teams that are out there, what they do, how they do it, why do they do it, how to press, why to press that way, why to press another way, why to play this system over that system, the pros and the cons of every system, and then how to take all those systems down. You need a plan for that as well. And then in the middle of all that, you're trying to shape your own philosophy. How would I do this? How do I see the game? How do I visualize the game? And then sometimes it's difficult to move away from your own sense of what you would hold close to your heart, So I don't think I would agree with Shane. I think it can be done, or else I wouldn't be doing it in one instance. But I think it is a journey as well. And I can, it's funny, like, because I've done a bit of work with you, Martin, and Louth last year, and when we were trying to win a county championship with them, and it was really interesting because I hadn't been on a Gaelic field for a while, and in the first 15 minutes of being on the pitch, like, I was lost, because I was thinking the other way all the way. And I was thrown by it, like, and it was like, whoa,
That's right, though, isn't it? I mean, as somebody who that's brilliant. Like, you're thinking in another language.
Thinking in another language, and then after 15 minutes, I was fine. I was 100%, and then that was me, and I was away again, and I was, heading in loads of different directions. But I thought that was a good moment, And even with the 19s in Derry, like, I do a lot of the coaching, like, when we're pushing them physically, we're pushing them tactically, we're trying out things, and I do have a very clear sense of what the game looks like in my own head, and how I want that to look like on the pitch. And so all those things I'm comfortable with now. And like, you can't stop people from talking, like, you know what I mean? And you can't stop people from criticizing you, but the only thing you can do is be true to yourself and try to keep moving forward and prove everybody wrong. Ultimately, that at the end of the day, that's what it is. And people that really, really put the boot in, those are the people that you're trying to prove wrong more than anybody else, at the end of the day, because if the criticism is harsh, like even when you're a Gaelic manager, do you know what I mean? It's not yourself, it's more people around you or family and stuff, and things like that can be difficult. But I also, I do understand where people would go, well, like, I mean, that's never going to work, like a Gaelic man going into that environment, But I don't agree with that now, because I'm in it so long, and I've studied the game so much, and how I see the game is so clear in my mind. And so, a big thing is the right club. A big thing is recruitment. I need a certain type of player to play the game the way that I want to play it, and I suppose everybody does. In terms of their philosophy, but which is high intensity. It's aggressive, it's high pressing. It's asking questions of the opposition. A bit like Donegal, it's ruffling teams psychologically. With intensity, but you need good players in the middle of the park that can put their foot on the ball. You need athletes at fullback. You need centre halves that can build attacks, that can step in, that can create incision moments. And then from a build-up play, you need that connection between that first line, the middle line, playing it out, to play it in, to play it in, to play it out, and you need pace up front. For me, pace up front would be very, very important, because, going back to my Gaelic roots, I like to get the ball in behind and ask that question. I think Chelsea did that very well in the final. I think they mixed their game up really well. Yeah, I mean, they had a defensive plan. They forced City to play through them, but they also mixed it up really well. They had good pace, they had good runners. They played those passes early, and even if it didn't work out, they're up and they're squeezing spaces and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you need a certain type to play that, and you need a certain type here as well.
And that's hard to managing Donegal. sorry to cut across you, that's harder
Not
to get
really.
almost when you're, you know, with all respect to obviously the you know, in the Chinese league and with Charlotte, like it's hard to, I understand exactly what you're saying in terms of the quality, the skill level, the mentality of a player. They tend to be the players that reach the very top, and maybe even a Dundalk in some regards, but it makes it your job almost harder, does it? That like it'd be easier to walk into a Chelsea obviously and deal with that caliber of player.
Well, it all depends on the players that are there. You know, it all depends. Like, I mean, like number 10 in inverted commas, like, you know, would struggle in a system like this. You know, and if you look at a lot of the big teams that are playing a high intensity pressing game now, that position doesn't exist anymore, because you just can't have that luxury where people sort of stroll about the place waiting to, you know, to link play and make connections. You know, it's more about 3 midfielders or 4 midfielders that are aggressive and up on it and asking questions. And the 9 now, a lot of the time, the 9 is the false 9, and they're the person making the connections rather than the 10, you know. And so, no, I think it just depends what you have. Like what I was going to say there a second ago, when I was looking for players in Donegal, you know, the question that I used to always ask myself when I was at club games was, can he do it in one hand? And then the second question was, does he want to do it? And the second question is the more important question, because at a professional level, most of them can do it. That doesn't mean they want to. Do you know what I mean? Most of them have the capacity. They're training every day. They play every day. But do they have the mentality? You know? And so if you look at teams like Leeds, you know, like Salzburg, like Leipzig, like Liverpool, even Chelsea, you know, even though they've played a low block since he's come in, his principles would be in line with those other clubs normally. You need athletes, you need runners, and you need guys that want to do it, you know. And I remember Jurgen Klopp speaking about Salah, you know, when he came into the club, that he wants to run in behind. So if you have a player that wants to do that, then implementing your philosophy becomes much more easier than having a player that you know can do it, but you've got to say, can you give us more in behind? Can you give us more in behind? You know what I mean? So you're pushing a message all the time in one hand, whereas in the other hand, the guy wants to do it anyway. And so if you've got midfielders, you know, that are feisty, like Milner and these guys and Henderson, that are aggressive, you know, they love that battle, they love that challenge, but are good football players into the bargain, it's a perfect mix, you know. And so recruitment is huge.
Can I ask you a little bit? It's slightly tangential, but it certainly brought to mind as you were talking there. Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran on the football pod, the brilliant football pod that's come on stream from OTB over the last few weeks. We're talking this week about the 2014 game, and Paddy was saying about how that game was a line in the sand, that it changed Dublin forever. That sort of, you going up against that man-to-man setup and moving players around and changing the position of it. And it was a really interesting point. It struck me, A, that you were to blame for the 6 in a row, Jim, that was very firmly at your door.
But nobody in Dublin has thanked me for it yet.
I can only imagine. B, I did wonder, that was 2014 and everything you did around that time. In 2021, where you see the game, because like even when you talk about the Gegenpress there, and Joe Brawley's been writing about the heavy metal football over the last few weeks as well. Where is it? Felt like a boom time almost for GAA tactics in the, you know, sort of 10, 12, 13 years ago. Where is it at now? Is it still progressing? And what sort of phase are we in at the minute?
Gaelic football.
Yes.
Gaelic football will always progress, and it will always develop, and it will always evolve. I think at the moment you have a very interesting dynamic at play in a couple of contexts. Number one, you've got the best team in the country, Dublin, who are creating a huge dynasty. Now they don't have a weak link. You know, they don't have a line in the team where there's a question being asked of them. You know, they've got competition in every single line. And they've morphed from, you know, a dynamic swashbuckling kicking team to a very, very cultured, intelligent, conscientious, possession-based team that can transition when that moment pops up. But, you know, they will keep the ball and they will use the ball, and they will drag you to one side of the field to put it to the other side of the field to inject pace and all those types of things. What's interesting is, for me, is all the other coaches in the country are sort of following the offensive model that is Dublin. And they're, and that's reflected in the scores. Like I said it earlier, in the launch for the GAA, for the Sky coverage. When did we move from, Gaelic football to hurling? Because all the score lines now are hurling score lines. It's 4:21 and it's 1:18 and it's 2:23, and
Ulster football leading the way, by the way.
Aye, and this is standard,
Yeah.
But there's a paradox here for me, and the paradox is that Dublin, to my mind, were the most defensive team in the country last year. Like, we were at the games and we were watching the games, and the 15 players inside their own 65, almost every single attack. And I don't feel that they get the credit for that they deserve on the one hand, but I feel that it's whitewashed over as well because they're so good going forward. And I think there's a fundamental flaw with the teams that are trying to follow them, in the sense that they're taking the Newcastle approach. They're trying to, outgun everybody and do the same at the other side. But there's no doubt in my mind, Dublin were the most sophisticated defensive system. In the first third, when they were pressing high, the way that they did it, the way they got people to the sideline, the way they created 2v1s, then maybe trying to push out that to a 3v1 and won the ball high up in the field. The way they did it in the middle third with extra bodies, and then in the final third, the contact that they brought more contact than anybody else. Like, tackling is almost gone, but Dublin brought it. And there's people in there that love contact as well. Like Johnny Cooper loves it, Small loves it, James McCarthy loves it. They love making tackles, but they did make tackles as well. Let's be honest, they hit hard, they hit fair, and the ball popped out. And so if you're going to play man-to-man football, which with the +1 at the back, if you're going to play that and you expect to beat the other team, then you've got to be better than them. If I'm playing wing half forward and I've got phenomenal pace and you don't have phenomenal pace, and I drop my shoulder and I go and then I go the other direction, it's over. It's a foot race. And if the cover's not there and the support's not there, and so I find it interesting, that Mayo, even though they've lost all those All-Ireland finals, never made that even adjustment to go for something else for 20 minutes, back to your principles, go again, 15 minutes, could manage the game in the last 15. They had a couple of All-Irelands won, but they kept on sticking with the other part of it. And yet Dublin, who, when the game was in the melting pot, they grabbed everybody by the neck and pulled them to the ground on the most important kick out in the game, because they knew what to do to win the game. And Donegal now are absolutely gung-ho offensive. Tyrone are looking to do it. Mayo are still doing it. Kerry are doing it. But the other side of it, is it's about getting that right as well. And I'm not talking here that it needs to be a defensive approach. It needs to be both. We tried to win the All-Ireland 2011. We couldn't win it because we were too defensive and not offensive enough. And we moved from, let's be honest, we kept teams on average to 8.5 points in the championship that year, which is the lowest in the history of the game. But that was our building block. That was our platform. And then we only got 11 scores on the board on average ourselves in every one of those championship games. But the following year, when we won it, we were getting 17.5 points on the board, but we retained the defensive aspect. And there's a very strong parallel between that and what Dublin are doing at the moment. Dublin have men that want to defend and can defend, and a system to defend in each third of the park. And then they have a phenomenal attacking unit with the goalkeeper, particularly the half-backs, the midfielders, and the 6/10 forwards that they can use on a given day. So the balance is right with Dublin. Whereas I'm not sure if it is, with the pretenders. I'm not sure if it is with Donegal or Mayo or Kerry, Tyrone. You could throw into the mix there as well. So I find it interesting, that people are following Dublin on the one hand, but they're missing out, I think, on that other part of it. And Dublin have all the boxes ticked now.
Jim, can I just ask you, on a separate note, I guess, like, we had the news in the last week or so of Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, deciding to not speak to the press around the French Open and then pulling out of the tournament as a result. And look, there are obvious mental health concerns there. And for her, it was clearly the right decision. But it kind of just got me thinking about GAA players and managers and speaking to the media, at the height of the championship when everything is at its peak. And, we have different phrases like control the controllables, and you've Peter Keane coming out after his Kerry side demolished Galway saying, sure, all the usual Yera stuff. But and then you see people like Jack McCaffrey coming out and being so eloquent when he speaks. In your mind, I guess, is it right that GAA players and managers kind of keep quiet at the height of the championship, or do you think for the sport itself and for our national game that it might actually be a good thing for them to open up and speak a little bit more? I guess to improve awareness around the game globally.
Yeah, when you say speak, about mental health.
No, sorry, that was just, I guess, Naomi Osaka's reasons for I guess not taking part in press conferences at the height of a tournament, but. Wanted to bring that parallel into GAA.
Even that example of Naomi, like, you know what I mean? Everybody speaks about mental health and everybody speaks about the importance of mental health, but then there was a girl clearly evoking that right and then getting criticized for that. And so that would be the parallel that I would draw from that every manager has that right. Do you know what I mean? They have that right to decide themselves what they should say and what they shouldn't say. And my take on it was that I was always open with the media, and I always tried to give, honest accounts. And sometimes as well, like, when you're open with the media, you're actually talking to your own players. You're talking in terms in the context of performance. Like, we know we're better than that. We know we can do better than this. We know we're better than that. And you're sending a message on the one hand, but on the other hand, the intricate details behind that message, the players are very, very acutely aware of. So my take on it always was, just to be honest and to be open and to say what I felt like saying or not, because sometimes it works the other way with media as well. Like I've been in press conferences, with for big games and stuff, and the media would set you up. One guy will ask a question to lead the other guy to ask the question, so they're going to get you on the question that they want and all. So I think it's a two-way street. And I think it's, you can say, people need to be more open and more transparent and more engaging if they don't feel that they can't trust people, and there's, it's probably a 50-50 split with myself, because some of them just took the negative puke football sort of jargon and ran with that. And a lot of their stories were very negative towards us. And then other people, you could have just very common sense, good football conversations with them, and those are the journalists that you would connect with, like in terms of being more expressive and opening up yourself. Because if you feel you're going into an environment where, regardless what you say, it's going to end up like, I've done interviews since 9 o'clock this morning, and I've mentioned the issue about Dublin being the best defensive team. That is going to be the strap line tomorrow morning. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Dublin are a negative team and Dublin are a defensive team will be what Jim McGuiness said about that, which is not the truth and it's not the case. But I know that half of the media will take that and run with that, and the other half will be analytical and call it as I said it, and wait for that tomorrow morning, because I think that will happen. And so for me, it cuts both ways. And I think on all of these issues, whether it's mental health or just the right to talk or not talk, you hold that right. But on a personal level, I feel you should be engaging. I feel that, the people of Donegal, when I was managing, deserve to hear what you were thinking. And sometimes not, because maybe it's the betterment for the group or the county as a whole.
Look, there's plenty more on that and plenty more on everything else. I actually brought to mind, I remember doing a post-match interview with you up in Ballybuffet after a league match a number of years ago, and I think it was Neil McGee got the man of the match, and you were asking me off camera if we'd got the right McGee brother, which was a good way to start off an interview with a fairly stern Jim McGuiness, I'll say after that game too. But listen, it's been a pleasure catching up with you. Whatever the future holds, good luck with the punditry, obviously, with Sky over the coming months, and whatever the future holds, we'll keep a close eye on it, and best of luck with it.
Thanks very much, boys.
Brilliant stuff from Jim McGuiness. You could really spend a lot more time in that man's company, and you can hear a lot more from him on the telly as well over the course of the summer. He was obviously speaking as part of Sky's 2021 GAA season launch, announcing their championship fixtures, 18 live matches, 12 of them exclusive to Sky Sports.